Hello, thanks for joining me. My last video put all the crankcase back together, both the halves, all the gearbox in, so that's done. Now in this video I'm going to crack on and finish off the rest of the engine, get it all put back together, get it filled up hopefully, and then I can eventually get it back in the bike and get it run in, ride it. I haven't ridden a bike for probably about 2 years now, so that'll be interesting. So stay tuned. Alright, so first up is the shift mechanism, what I'm going to tackle first. Okay, so first up, you wash it. And get the nut on there. Make sure the spring's in the indent where it needs to be. We're just going to nip that up for now. Control drum. So I'm going to hold this back with a screwdriver. Alright, once we get that in fully, I can let go of this screwdriver, let the spring go, and there we are. Alright, so each one of these indents here, that represents a gear. So at the minute this little starred one, that represents neutral, so we're in neutral at the minute. So just check that. These should spin independently. If I hold one, I can spin that, same with that one. If I spin that, I can hold that, so we're in neutral. So all the gears are lined up properly. I'm going to get these bolts in and torque them up. A little bit of thread lock on this. Don't need so much. And then we're going to torque that up to 22 Newton meters. Now I'm going to go ahead and torque this little nut here. There we are, that's that lot in. I'm going to get the shift mechanism in there now. Alright, so I'm going to lube up this shaft. Don't want to stick it in dry. And then we'll put it in there. Alright, that'll just press straight in. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the gear change lever on, and I'll just go through the gears, make sure it's working properly. Alright, so that's all the shift mechanism installed. I'm happy with how it's all going. We can get all the gears. It won't be super smooth at the minute. Obviously the engine's not running, so we could just manually get them in there. And now we can crack on with the kickstarter and the idler gear. Okay, so first I'm going to install the idler gear. It's got two circlips on. I've put the first one already. As you need to, I've lubed it up with engine oil on the inside where it's going to sit. And before you install it, just double check that you're going to fit it the right way around. So on this, it's not the same either side. It's got a little shoulder on it, and on this model, the shoulder side goes facing in. Alright, so you can just see where it's different there compared to the other side. Alright. So if you do get it together and it's not quite lining up on the gears, that's possibly why. We'll get that on. Get the next circlip on. Now on the kickstart, all you need to make sure is that the spring is located properly, and that this shoulder, this ratchet shoulder here, the ratchet arm goes behind the guide. Slot that in, interlock it with the idler gear and pull the spring back in into that hole. Wow. And to test it, these gears should spin freely, which looks good to me. And then to test the kickstarter, I'm going to put the starter pedal on. And if I hold the gear, you should hear the ratchet. Spot on. So that's M2 done. Okay, so next up is the primary drive gear. So first of all, I'm just gonna, they've got an O-ring on this, so I'm gonna grease it up, slide that over, push it over the slot for the Woodruff key. We'll put a little bit of grease on the Woodruff key. Slide that in. And then I've already greased up the shoulder on the primary drive gear in the inside of it as well. So I just got to line it up with a Woodruff key and then slot it on. Push it all the way until it sits onto the bearing, and there we are. Next on is the locking washer. It's slightly concaved on this, so it's a special type of washer, so it needs to go with the concave side facing into the engine, so that when you tighten the nut up, it puts the pressure onto the primary drive gear, and then hopefully it won't come loose. So that's that on there, and we'll get that torqued up when I get the clutch on. Alright, now we're on to the clutch. Now before I start anything, I'll always have a look through manual, or at least have a look in a parts diagram, just to make sure I'm not missing any washer before I put the stuff in. So first up, I'll put the thrust washer on, push that all the way into the bearing, and then we've got our sleeve. And what I'll do with this is I'll just coat it with a little bit of engine oil and slot that on. And then we've got our two roller bearings. Same again with that, I'll put a bit of oil on them before I slot them in. Now for the clutch housing. Same again with that, I'll put a bit of engine oil in there, and then when we put the clutch housing on, we're just going to line it up with the gears, with the eye of the gear and the primary drive gear, and interlock them. And there we are, she's in. Thrust washer, slot that on, and then we go ahead and fit the clutch hub. Same again, I've oiled the back of that. I'm going to fit the spleen washer, and then the locking nut. On this one, it's got a shoulder on it, and then when we get it on, we hammer them, give it a hammer and it locks it into place. A lot of the new bikes, they have locking washers on them, which are better than getting an hammer to that. Alright, then we're going to torque that up. So the clutch nut's 98 Newton meters, so we're obviously going to have to use this holding tool so we can stop this from moving and get it tightened up. Now this holding tool is designed to sit into these spleens here, but it's too fat to go in there, so what I have to do, I have to put it in between these and lock it on that. And hopefully one day they're not going to shatter on me. Alright, and there she is, torqued up. And before I move on, while I've got a torque wrench out, I'm going to torque this primary drive nut up before I forget. Now, to wedge the gears in, I used to use like a copper washer or a penny, or you can use a rag or whatever just to jam it in, but I ended up getting one of these Motion Pro Dome. It's a gear locker or whatever they call them, but it's a decent bit of kit. It's got a little magnet on it so it sticks to it, But all you do is just wedge that into the teeth, and then it'll get stuck in between the teeth. And there we are, a gear jammer, I think that's what they call it. But there you go, that's solid, that. So there's no messing about, it's not going to damage any teeth. I can get this torqued up 59 newton meters. And because it's got the magnet on, when I'm winding it back off the pressure, it's not going to fall off. Which you used to find with it when you used to use the pennies or the little washers. So that's all torqued up now. And I'll hammer this pinch bolt in. And right, so I'm going to drop the clutch lever in. I've lubed that up with some grease. Drop that in before I put the push rod in. That's in. And I'm going to lube the push rod up with some engine oil. Both ends. It doesn't matter on this rod because which way we put it in, because they're both the same end. So get that in there, slot it in nicely, and then what I'll do, I'll just move the clutch lever, just make sure that's coming in and out. Job's a good one. Right, now we can get the clutch plates in. I've had these friction plates sat in this oil for about, well, it'll be over a day now anyway, but you want to make sure you lube them up pretty good. If they're brand new friction discs, you want a good soak on them, so you want them soaking for about at least a day, I'd say. But these are the old ones anyway. I can't afford new friction discs, but they should be fine. Now on these friction discs, you should have some markers on them. So on these, you've got the little indents. There's 3 of them. So each one we put on, we can get it lined up. All right. So this bike, we go friction disc first. So I'll put one of the indents at the top. And then when I get the clutch plate, again I'm going to make sure I get plenty of oil on it. Doesn't matter which way, you don't have to line these up or out. You have a rough side and a flat side, a smooth side, like a rounded edge, and a flat side. I've had different things, but I've always put the rounded edge on the outside. So I'll put it on that way. Some people say do it the other way, but I don't know what difference it makes. So I get the rest of these put in. Pressure plate next. Just before you install it, make sure you've got all your bearings and all your washers. Alright, you're not missing any. And then on this one we see the mark up there, and there's a little mark down here. We've got to line it up. There's a couple of marks on this pressure plate, so I've got one up there and one down there, so we just line them up and then we push it on. And then we can get the clutch springs in. Up, it's 8.8 newton meters on this, so it's only a little. So time to bring out my trusty little cycling torque wrench. Makes it easy for little things like this rather than using the big numb one. Obviously, when you're tightening these springs up, don't forget to do them in a crisscross pattern so it's coming on evenly. And there we go. That's this side of the engine completed. Alright, and just to finish off, I'm going to put the cover on this side. So new gasket going in. Make sure you don't forget the O-ring in there for your water pump. And then we just have to line up these gears with a primary drive. Okay, that's all the bolts nipped up. I don't torque these bolts because they're so easy to strip out, so I just do them by hand and I just tighten them up by feel really. Just get them tight enough, but you've got to be careful because you can easily strip them out. So now all this side's done, I'm going to spin it around in this jig and then crack on with the stator plate and the flywheel. So first of all, what I'm going to do before I install is I'm going to check all the points, make sure there's no rust spots, no damages are out. If there is any bits of rust on it, all I'll do, I'll get a bit of emery cloth and get it off. So before I do it, I'll put a bit of waterproof grease on there. Now on this, the only thing we really need to make sure of is that we're lined up on these timing markers here inside the case. So what I'll do, I'll get the screws in and then double check that they're lined up. Alright, so once I've got all the screws in, slightly nipped up, I'm going to line this marker up on here. Alright, once I'm happy that that's lined up, I'm going to tighten these right down. Alright, now before we fit the flywheel, it's a good idea just to check the inside of the magnets, make sure we haven't picked any bolts up or out like that. We don't want to be like that, it'd be pretty disastrous. Now before I put that on, I'm going to grease the inside of that. Alright, and then get the key into the slot. And then just line it up with your Woodruff key and slide it on. Now all we need to do is get your washer and your bolt on there and nip that up and torque that up to 20 Newton meters, 22. Alright, to tighten this up I'm going to have to use the holding tool just to lock it into place while I get it tightened up. That's the flywheel done. Alright, so that's the end of the bottom end of this engine, all complete. I'm happy with how everything went, seeing as there are 2 new cases to this, so all went pretty smoothly. Next job I've got to do is I've got to do the reed valves and then the top end. So I'll do that while it's in the engine mount in this jig, just saving me back more than now. And once that's done, I can get it in the bike, in the frame, and see if she goes. So hopefully someone out there's found this video helpful. And if you've got any comments or any feedback for me, just drop it below. And yeah, I appreciate you watching. Thanks very much. Cheers, keep it tight. Alright, and then place the key into the slot. Alright, make sure you can get the key into the fuck off.